adjusting the mic.
Holy moly.
Causing problems already.
It's definitely Wednesday. And it's the 2:00-ish hour. We try to make it on time, but you know what? Hey, it's the inner journey. We decide what we do, when we do, how we do, whenever we do. So, Rob Morales, RCO Network, here on a Wednesday, talking about emotions, feelings, the things that brings us together, and the things that separate us even so. But hopefully more together.
Hopefully more together, yeah.
So, my co-host, as always, the delightful, the distinguished, the
one that's always making us late. We won't go there.
That
no.
works too. the transcendentally delicious Miss Mary.
I like that.
Van Alstyne.
I like that. Hi.
So like I said, this is the Inner Journey. On Wednesdays, we talk about emotions and feelings that really direct us and control our lives. And I think the better we control things emotionally, we can have a better control of life and business and everything else in between.
Yeah, yeah. I think the more that we learn ourselves, the more we're able to create our life. Yes.
Can you learn yourself? Can you?
That's what this is all about.
I do agree. So, but Miss Mary, I need to tell you something, and
Okay.
I can't tell you.
Okay. Why not? Are you afraid? Are you gonna?
I'm afraid to lose you.
Oh no. Why would you be afraid?
Well, we're here to talk about those things that I think where we're talking just before the show, it really directs itself more towards relationships, not just friendships, not just, the casual kind of person you meet at the grocery store. It talks about more of like those things that you really want to tell your partner, your spouse, the person that you essentially love. Love is a whole other topic. Mm-hmm. But the person you feel really close to that you withhold information from because of why, Mary? Why do we withhold information from people?
I don't want you to leave me. I also think that it's very, very much relates to friendships. I mean, it may be more deeply personal on the relationships level, but I also think it affects our work relationships and our friendships just as much.
Yeah, because I think there's certain environments where we can be very truthful. Maybe not in the best of ways or articulated well, but we could be very truthful. But when it comes to relationships, sometimes we withhold back, right? I mean, we were talking about this in the last couple of days, and we won't go over specific situations. We can if you want to. But when I was married before, there were certain things that I withheld in my relationship because I didn't want her to be upset or be frustrated. Mm-hmm. When somebody comes home and you see them day in and day out, it's like, well, I want to have sex with this person, but they had a rough day, and they told me about how they lost that account, and I don't want to be selfish and really impose myself, but fuck, I'm horny, and I just want to be with this person, and they're going through a rough day, and I can't do that to them. Have you ever had those moments?
Yeah.
Did I throw you off with the sex part?
No. I was just thinking, does it all relate to do we get sex or not? I'm kidding.
Yeah, it does kind of. In relationship, it really does. I mean, really, the thing that distinguishes a spouse or, besides a wedding or marriage certificate, is really like the sex part. I mean, that really distinguishes a friend. I mean, unless they're a friend with benefits, but then again, there's really no commitment. So there's a whole lot we could explore there. But really, the key, the key is like, why is there sometimes we withhold things from our partner or from our the person that's closest to us, and we aren't able to kind of express ourselves in the way we want to?
I think it's like you said, we're afraid that they will either not respect us, as far as like a work relationship or a friendship, or they may leave us, which leaves us with that sense of abandonment, which goes against our biological need to fit into community, right? And that we won't be liked. We have this huge, I need to be liked, It seems to be a common thread between most people, is this need to be liked by everybody. So this fear of not being alone, this fear of being abandoned, I think that's what that plays to.
Yeah, and I grew up in an environment, and you can express and explain how you grew up, but I mean, most of the way I grew up and the way I was taught to love somebody else was kind of yelling and anger. And
can't you see I love you?
Basically, yeah. I mean, that's the underlying theme, but it always comes out like, oh, you didn't take out the trash. Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and there's a lot of finger pointing, blaming, all that stuff, and there was always a lot of anger, and my observation and kind of my reflection upon those things, there's really a dichotomy of emotions. It's like really anger, and then there's silence. Like when my dad would get mad at me, I was younger. The worst thing, it wasn't him yelling.
The silence.
It was the silence that drove you crazy. You're like,
Yeah.
just yell at me, say something, you know. And when he withdrew and completely withdrew from conversation, everything, that hurt worse than the yelling. But, you know, I think for a vast majority of people, especially myself, I mean, that's how you grow up, and that's what you know love is. It's like, I love you so much, I'm going to yell at you.
Yeah.
But and then when his friends came over, or when there was like people involved, like he would show a lot of reverence and, you know, be patient and almost be passive to like how somebody upset him. But yet at me,
well, because he didn't fear you leaving him. You're his child, right? So he was upholding this image and this need to be liked, is what I'm gathering from that. And I grew up in a similar kind of culture of the image to others was a little bit more important. You know what I mean? And I think that just, it really goes to show. And we also grew up with parents of the silent era age, right?
You don't say nothing.
You don't say anything. You don't share your feelings. You just keep it to yourself. You don't want other people to think this, think that, you know, about you. So we're transforming that now, right?
I hope so. I mean, growing up around because I grew up pretty much around my grandparents. My grandfather was the rule of the house. You know, my grandmother conceded to a lot. She just shut up. She just kind of fell in line. And, you know, there's still I guess there's still that sense of like wanting to find somebody that's going to concede to me and decide, you know, I'm the one in charge. But, you know, the culture definitely changes over time. And in his culture, it was like the man ruled the house. And now that's not so much, right? We're all supposed to be fair and equal.
Yeah, depending on what you choose. Yeah.
If you knew Mary, hold on. If you knew Mary, you would understand what that meant. Just kidding. What does that mean, Mary?
What? I think it's everybody's choice. I mean, I think that we all have the roles to play, and I think that we can choose the life that we want, whether we want to be submissive or dominant in the female-masculine role, whether we're female or masculine in gender, you know what I mean? So, I
think this culture forgets that. I think that there is a sense of like a balance between a dominant and submissive. Like the submissive is totally in control. The dominant thinks they're in control. You know, because if there's nobody to dominate over, the dominant has no control.
Yeah.
So really, the submissive has all the control. But yet they allow for that. They submit to the dominant for whatever reason. You know.
I think the comment you just made about if you knew Mary and we're going into dominant submissive, people are going to get the wrong idea about me.
It's not tied into Mary whatsoever. No, but I mean, there is a dichotomy there that we fail to understand, that our culture is kind of minimized and kind of like just blanketed and just neutralized, I think. You know, and we have these battles between our relationships, and we withhold our feelings because we don't understand the dichotomy. We don't understand that there is an interplay between those two. And when I say dominant, submissive does not mean male, female.
Right.
I mean, there is somebody in your relationship. There is somebody more in charge than you, or vice versa. Yeah. If somebody's always doing what you want to do, you're the dominant. Yeah. And if you feel like jaded and upset about the person that has to have their way, you know, and you concede to that, you're the submissive. Right? Am I wrong?
No,
this is why I come to you, Mary. I'm trying to understand these things. I am somewhat confused. I'm a confused human.
Are you confused? No, I mean, you got it right. You got it right, and I think that yes, we can learn to communicate our feelings and have. It's not that we need to be equals, but we can play the roles what we want to within a relationship. Like if we enjoy being able to sit back and have somebody take control, then why not slip into that? But being able to express our feelings so that we're not going into that martyr role of just doing whatever the other person wants all the time, and then harboring these feelings of resentment or these hurt feelings or whatever it is, you know, just so that we don't upset the other person. You know what I mean? I think clear communication, the relationship goes much beyond that.
Well, and I think that's really what maturity is, emotional maturity. You know, we grow up and we have this idea that the person that we're with is an adult because of their age, because of the way they look.
Age means nothing.
But emotionally, a vast majority of people, at least in my experience and what I've seen, really don't grow up past, 12, 13, that kind of like middle school, that around that age range. That's basically the time we're told to control our emotions. You know, 'cause at 5 years old, when you're being yelled at by your mom, like, hey, you need to stop crying. You need to stop. That's her teaching you how to control your emotions. But by the time you hit a certain age, like 12, 13, you're supposed to, quote unquote, know better. And do we really?
No. And I think bottled up emotions is a lot of the problem in society at large right now.
Yeah.
You know, not being able to feel the things that we feel, like being told somehow that feelings and emotions are wrong, which is why we're here talking about feelings and emotions, to go, no, those are right.
Yeah.
And they have a place in our life, and they have something to teach us, and that we grow from them, and it's natural to have these feelings and emotions, and to express them is the most powerful thing we can do. And it will move us forward in every area of our life.
Yeah, and to take off that idea, I think it's to express them effectively.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it's not just because like expression.
Don't express them as that 5-year-old, right?
the angry 5-year-old or the withdrawn 5-year-old.
And I think that's what happens. We become what is it called? Arrested development. Almost we are that 5-year-old now walking in a 35, 40-year-old body, expressing our emotions in that way because we haven't learned to express them in a healthy way, right?
Yeah, and again, there's no rule book, and there's nothing really. I haven't come across a parent in my time with child welfare. I haven't come across a parent that's able to articulate that and show their kids how to emotionally grow up. You know, my parents, I love them to death, but they didn't really sit down and say, hey, you know, son, the emotions you're going through are this and this and this. If it ties back to this, it probably ties back to something I did to you, you know, which is unfortunate. But you got to fucking grow up now. You know, you got to control these emotions. Otherwise, you're going to have poor relationships, and you're going to keep running into the same problems in the future as you have in the past. You know?
You say control, I say embrace. That's our.
We have a thing between.
We have
Mary
a thing.
and I.
We do.
We definitely have definition issues.
word play issues. Yeah.
Yes, I am very content in my life.
Yeah.
Mary is very happy.
I'm happy. Yeah. But yeah, no, we learn to embrace these emotions. We learn to accept that they are, and we learn to navigate them, right? Which is kind of like your word for control them. It's like navigating them and using them in an effective way to be able to strengthen relationships and to be able to navigate our own life.
But again, I don't think we're ever taught to navigate those.
We are not
until we go to counseling or until we're forced to.
That's the sad part. But I also feel like there's a very big shift in the collective community right now, where these things are now becoming more mainstream. You know, and we are being taught to express these things a little bit more and to be able to relate to them a little bit more. It's not as taboo of a topic as it used to be, this talk of emotions, which is why we're looking to expand that, you know, and bring that.
Yeah, and I think what the purpose of the show has always been is that it gives the audience, you guys that are watching, you know, a place to kind of at least reflect, and gives you a little bit of time to think about the things that we talk about, because this is everyday shit that we go through.
Yeah.
And it's okay to express that, but you know, until you find a Mary in your life,
or a Robert,
I would say Mary
and a Robert,
until you find one of us in your life.
Find us both.
Do you feel secure enough and confident enough to have those conversations? And I think that really boils down to the sense of insecurity. And so the reason I think we withhold conversations and talk about these things is because we're insecure that the person that we're going to divulge this information, what we're going to say, is going to have them leave. Like we're 5 years old, you know, like we're throwing a fit. Are they going to leave us when we are upset?
Or there's a fear of punishment too. You know, when you're 5 and you
Correct.
think about expressing yourself to your parents or whatever parental figure you have, there's this fear. And that gets ingrained into our system, you know, our biological system and within our body. And that carries us forward into our future behaviors as an adult. So, yes, that absolutely contributes to us withholding and bottling all this up.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon we're like a 2-liter that you're shaking.
Are you 2 liter?
We're going to explode.
A 2 liter with Mentos in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, we're here talking about just the feelings that we have that we withdraw and we withhold from somebody else because I think at the end of the day, care about the other person. And we don't want to lose them out of our life, you know, for whatever reason. I think a lot of it is due to insecurity as a child. You know, there are certain things that we are never taught as children, or even quasi-mature children, being around, you know, middle school age. We're not sat and taught these things, and there is some number in our age that we're supposed to miraculously understand these things. I think that number is 18 for most people, because now we're an adult. We're supposed to know all these things automatically.
Yeah.
And as I reflect back, like I thought I knew everything at 18, but At 42 now, I didn't know shit at 18, and I'm barely discovering what I should have known then. Now at 42, which is it's just frustrating, but also enlightening at the same time.
Yeah, and it's really amazing to watch because I have kids in different generations. I have like 3 generations of children at home. Well, one's not at home, but to be able to watch the evolution of this and the understanding of this it's evolving. It's really evolving right now. And I can have very mature, emotional conversations with my 25-year-old that I couldn't even imagine having when I was his age, with my mom. And so I think that it is really a beautiful thing that we're all evolving to be able to accept these emotions, and it's just a natural thing because I think humanity is like that 2-liter that's been shaken up and it's exploding, and people are, I mean, there's so many sad cases of suicides and this and that, and it's coming to the light. And now with the exposure of media and this outlet that we all have to be able to communicate about these things, the ones that are willing to talk about it are making it more okay. Like when you and I first sat down,
yes,
you said, I want to talk about the things that people are afraid to talk about and make it okay, and I think that that's part of that movement to make these things more normalized. We all have feelings. Oh my God, we're human, we have them, and how can we navigate them together to be able to maximize our life, our relationships, our work, and just be happier or more content.
I prefer content.
So. Content, happy. My bracelets are really annoying. I'm so sorry. I'm going to take them off.
No, it's okay.
There.
But no, and you do bring a lot to light, and there isn't a forum and there isn't a place outside of counseling, which costs you whatever your health insurance is.
I think there are really explode. Yeah, there are now. Yeah, I think more, but it's a small number. But yes, for sure.
You can just follow our show every week. We talk about.
That's what I'm saying right here, right here.
We did receive a question though. What kind of advice would you give in regards to someone who tells lies right at the beginning of a relationship in order to avoid conflict? What do you tell somebody that's basically telling you lies? I guess.
What do you tell the person, or would I tell someone who is lying?
Let's see. Someone who tells lies right away at the beginning of a relationship in order to avoid conflict. Why are they telling lies?
They're telling lies to be liked. They're telling lies for acceptance. And the bottom line to that is they're telling lies because they don't fully accept themselves. In my opinion.
Yeah,
so what do you tell them? We could sit down and have a very long conversation with them about the power of authenticity. Learning to love yourself, that you don't want to be with a person that needs this XYZ person to show up for them, to be, that you don't want to be with that person who is not accepting you for who you are, right? So that goes into that whole self-love journey, right? I mean, this is a very long question and a long conversation I would have with this person about, to just really kind of find out like where they're at in their own self-acceptance, because this all boils down to being able to accept yourself, all of this, and being able to accept that you're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to piss some people off. And you need to be able to express yourself authentically, in order to have the deeper relationships, right? Because what are you really looking for? A shallow relationship where someone doesn't really know you? Or a relationship where someone knows and accepts everything about you?
Yeah, and see, I like to reflect on the basic needs. When I was a child, when I was a baby, when I was 5 years old, of course, I wasn't necessarily conscientious or conscious at that point. But, what was my need when I was a child? A lot of my need was to feel secure, to feel safe. And what a parent did is they consoled us in our moments of frustration and fear. We would cry, or we would do things to elicit a parent or person to come to us to our aid to comfort us, and a lot of that was consoling, like physically grabbing, bringing to your chest, bringing together and telling you everything's going to be okay, and I think as an adult, we don't learn how to deviate from that. We don't learn how to be self-sufficient away from that. So we constantly look for people to console us, to tell us things are going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And so in a projection like, hey, I don't want to, when they're telling you lies, is that they're trying to present a perfect image so that you can continue to provide that consultation. Yeah. Because if you had conflict, if you throw like, hey, you know what, you made me feel this way. Oh, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to avoid you. And I'm gonna dismiss you, and you're not doing the very thing as a child that you received, which is that consultation, that consoling, that like I love you and I just want you here next to me. So I think a lot of that ties back to that.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why over the last probably 3 years now, my biggest journey has been this journey of self-love and becoming a conscious parent to myself and my inner child. Yeah. And being able to self-soothe myself, being able to know that like I need to accept myself before anybody else can accept me fully, and there's this constant practice of showing up authentically. Maybe I'm rejected and maybe that's okay, and being able to self-soothe and work through my emotions and understand that like I need to be the parent now, and so there's a lot of that. It's a lot of work, and it's so rewarding to be able to monitor your own self that way instead of looking outward for that kind of validation or that kind of support, because the more we look out for something to control our emotions or dictate our emotions, it's more of a reactional response to our reality, and it becomes very dependent on everything and everyone else that's happening in our lives, and we have no control over that. What happens if we become this parent to ourselves and we can nurture ourselves enough to where we don't need the outer circumstances and we can show up fully as ourselves, we would experience more love, more acceptance. We would be able to do bigger things, all of it,
But that's the challenge too. We've never learned or looked or had an avenue to do that. There's always been somebody from that very early age that consoles us and takes us in and embraces us, and they don't teach us any different, and then when we turn 18, we're supposed to just go out and figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah, it's true.
And then we project and get angry at people for not doing that for us because that's all we've known. All we've known is a parent to come and embrace us and hold us to a certain point where they start rejecting us.
Yeah, and that's probably more true in our generation. And what I'm working on now with my kids is learning them to teach them how to self-soothe, like to comfort them and teach them how to express their emotions, and then learning to teach them that, or teaching them to learn that they have the ability to feel better by changing their thoughts, changing their reactions, changing their perspectives, and letting them have that space to soothe themselves, because like there's that bottom part of me that feels like I'm abandoning when I'm like, okay, we've talked through this. Now you can, if you need to go cry, you go cry, but that's really teaching them to have the power and the tools to support themselves going forward as adults. And hopefully we'll be able to change the world by changing how we teach these children to deal with all these emotions and this and their feelings and be able to soothe themselves without looking outward for some kind of validation to make them feel okay.
Well, and I think that ultimately goes into what we're here to talk about, reflect upon, is that our goal in life, our goal in any relationship, whether it's a parent to child or peer-to-peer, boyfriend to girlfriend, wife to wife, husband to husband, girlfriend to girlfriend, whatever it is.
Coworkers, friends,
Oh, you do that too,
No.
huh? No, but we're here at the betterment of somebody else. We're here to serve somebody else, to help them and give them a different perspective on their behaviors. And I think the baseline, the first thing is to have an environment that is that invites that conversation. Because too much of us spend so much time pushing away somebody because we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear anything negative. We always, everybody wants to hear everything positive.
Yes.
They want to hear how great I am. They want to hear how wonderful things are. But nobody wants to hear like, hey, you know what, you screwed up, or hey, I feel this way. Nobody wants to hear the
feedback
negative
is not very welcomed.
So I think the first learning lesson to all of this is to create an environment, which means listening.
Listening is the key.
Creating a safe place, safe environment, which is what we have here at the Inner Journey.
Yeah.
This is why we talk about these things, because we have a safe place here, right? Here.
We have a safe place, and it's a place of, it is a place of listening, and it's a place of listening from non-judgment for the reason that we have been able to create that is that we are self-responsible about our emotional reactions to maybe whatever's said that we may not agree with, or what, you know what I mean? And so it's creating that container of safety, because people are not going to share unless they feel safe. They're not going to progress. They're not going to grow unless they feel safe. Yeah. And so being the bigger person, being able to create that kind of space for someone, whether, and most people are like, why should I have to create the space, right? That's another victim-y type statement, And if you really want this better relationship, why not decide, I'm going to be the space creator for safety and honesty and authenticity.
That requires a secure person to do that.
It does, and it's all
a process.
part of the process and the journey, and
Yeah, if you find yourself typically angry or frustrated or withdrawn all the time, it's because at the end of I will fully say that you're probably an insecure person, which is okay. We're here to process. We're here to figure that out. It's trying to figure out what things we can do or what you can do on your own to feel more safe, to feel more secure, so that you can listen to your partner. Everybody wants a relationship. Everybody wants to feel loved. Everybody wants to feel connection. And if you can create that space, part of creating that space is just listening, even at the point where you're frustrated and you don't like what you hear. I mean, that is the thing that sucks is like hearing about all the things you did wrong, but not reacting to it. That is the toughest pill to swallow. And once you kind of overcome that, you can become a little bit more secure about that person, because you know what? They're expressing those things to you, but they're not leaving you either. Right. So you have to really focus in on the positive stuff.
Yeah, and I would also say that another part I would add to that is being able to and willing to listen to yourself. Sometimes we don't even listen to what our own feelings are around a situation. We're shutting ourselves up, and we're not even creating a safe space for ourselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then going on, I think that we have to be able to create that safe space for ourselves. That's a lot of S's, by the way. But we have to be able to create that space for ourselves and really kind of tap into what's going on inside of us and feel what's really going on inside of us before we're even able to create that safe space for another person. Yeah. Otherwise, we dive in and we fall into the insecurities and And
this is where I think counseling does help. Counseling, it offers a person outside of your immediate circle that you can vent to, who has skills and tactics that help with that process, to allow you to kind of vent to somebody outside of your immediate circle. Because I think the natural inclination is to blame people, for everything, every wrong that you've had. When you're feeling frustrated about your life, that you blame it on your spouse because they're just easy. It's just somebody's there who loves you, who's willing to listen to it, that you point the finger at, and it's just so easy to blame them for everything, but it's not their fault.
Yeah. And the other
nor
thing
is it your fault.
Exactly. And the other thing is, like, when we start spilling to other people in our circle, they're most likely going to have a bias on us, and they're going to hear half the story, right? Which is our side of the story. And they can actually feed whatever negative energy is going into that whole situation. And so I did a lot of marriage crisis counseling and things when I was attempting to save marriages in the past. And that was one of the big things they told me is, like, do not share outside this safe space. Right? Don't go sharing to your friends about everything that pissed you off. And it's literally that, because you don't want to feed that energy. You want to go to a neutral place where that concern is being able to be expressed without being fed. Because you know how it is. I mean, I'm sure you've been to someone and you're like, what happened to me? This happened to me. This person said this. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. And like, you feel yourself get more and more worked up. They're literally feeding that energy, right? And so that's part of the thing I think that's one of the benefits of having a neutral third party is as a counselor or therapist. Because
I think you naturally want to find people that confirm whatever feeling you want.
Yeah.
It's just like being on freaking Facebook and you're like, hey, I have a point of view and nobody agrees with me, so I'm going to find a group of people that agree with me.
Yeah, because misery loves company. That's just bottom line. Correct. All it is, right?
Yeah, and Lindsay says she takes it as constructive criticism. So we have another question. What are some things you can say to someone to help them feel more secure so that they feel like they don't need to lie about who they are? What can we do to offer somebody to feel more secure?
Oh, I think first, for me personally, what I do is I calm my own energy. Like, I take deep breaths before I'm even going to attempt to have a conversation with someone like that. Get myself into a very neutral space as much as I possibly can. And just using the words, I want to let you know that I'm going to accept and receive everything that you say, and I'm going to stay as neutral as I possibly can. Yeah. And if something does come up, we'll discuss that at the time. But like, it just create it. Just say it and create it, and I think that gives people to and understanding that you have concerns too, validating what maybe they're saying. If it's in the heat of the argument and you're already throwing words back and forth, right? Maybe confirming what they say. I hear what you're saying, and I'm taking it in. maybe I'm having a lot of reaction to it. Just give me a moment to take it in. But if we're not reacting and firing darts and bullets back, I think that itself creates a safe container for them. And it's more felt than said.
I would say, to help out to answer that question too, from my standpoint, a lot of counselors, a lot of people in that industry, therapists will have you create a journal. And I think there is a tremendous value in writing down your feelings, because it really reflects, it gives you a visual representation of how you're feeling in the moment, and without saying the words. And sometimes you can hold back and really reflect upon whether or not you want to say what you're going to say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is it the right words? I mean, sometimes you write some shit down that you just write out of frustration that you really don't mean. And there's a lot of times, I'm sure, and people who are watching right now will probably agree and say, hey, I've said some shit that I really didn't mean, but I just wanted her or him to feel upset or angry or frustrated, just like how I felt. I wanted them to feel how I felt. So I think sometimes writing stuff down, I'm a poet, so I write things in metaphor.
Yes, you are.
But it does help, reflect upon the emotion or the feeling when you write it down and have an understanding. When you're trying to convey a feeling in an ulterior way, so that I call it coloring. So when you're coloring in the lines, you're trying to, in poetry, you're trying to tell somebody without, in a very creative way, and how you feel. But journaling, I think, is really the key thing, where you can write it down. You can visually see, I hate you. But, okay, hold on. Do I really hate this person? No, but that's how I feel in the moment. So I really dislike you for this. Okay, well, maybe I don't really dislike you for that. Maybe I dislike you for another reason. Well, maybe I really don't dislike you. Maybe I just like you in a different way. But, man, when you do that shit, it drives me crazy. It really kind of helps to differentiate between the person, the situation, and the shit you're just going through.
I think it just gives you time between the event and the reaction, right? Yeah. Like it's lengthening that.
Kind of put you on pause a little bit.
It does kind of put you on pause, and sometimes it just allows that stress cycle to complete. I mean, I've written letters to people and then burned them. It's kind of a ceremonial ritual thing or whatever, but it's like you just need to be able to get it out. It doesn't necessarily have to be to that person, to their face, because that can be very hurtful. Yeah. Letting that feeling out and getting yourself to that neutral space. So, I mean, if I were to come to you and I'm like, I would love to have a conversation with you. Some things have been sitting weird with me, versus like, we need to talk. It's like, ground your energy, create the safe space, like feel how you're feeling before you even approach that conversation.
Yeah, and I think the conversation to have, since we're at the end of the show, is how do we do that with somebody that's pretty obstructive and doesn't want to have those conversations? When you are emotionally growing, I think sometimes the decision is, do I continue this relationship with this person? Do I branch off and find something else because this person isn't growing with me? There's so many things to decide when it comes to somebody that's really resistant to wanting to change with you. Nobody wants to live angry. Nobody wants to live frustrated. No. I did that for 12 years. Or, I shouldn't say that. I did that for about 6 years, towards the end of the marriage. Nobody wants it. But is there anything that we need to wrap up with, Ms. Mary? Any last thoughts that you have? You did talk about learning the I responsible.
I was just going to say the one thing that I would say that was the biggest thing that impacted all of my relationships, romantic and otherwise, is being able to express myself in a responsible what did I call it? Responsible communication. Yeah. And so a lot of the times I've noticed that, and once I was enlightened to this form of conversation, communication, I realized I was catching myself going, well, okay, so you did this thing and it made me feel that way, and that's basically a very judging, like pointing the finger at, you did something to make me feel. And what I learned in therapy and through counseling and things like that was that communicate from a space of communicate what you're feeling from a very responsible space. So the incident is the incident that happened. This incident, when this happened, I felt devalued. I felt hurt. I felt, whatever, but it's not putting that blame and the responsibility on the other person for that event that happened, and that can neutralize the conversation just enough to be able to open up more dialogue. Right?
Yeah.
So, it takes a lot of practice to do this. And once you decide you're going to start taking an responsible communication style, it just takes a lot of work and consciousness and mindfulness to be able to start.
Yep.
And once you decide this, you'll start catching yourself, well, he did this. I did this because of you. And you made me feel this way. And it's like, no, I feel this way. And I understand it may be coming from this, or this, or maybe this event, but not putting that on the other person. So that's the whole I responsible thing. If you want more information, well, it's a long conversation.
If you want more information, please contact Mary at us at the Inner Journey here every week on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Miss Mary for coming on. As always, so much information. There's so much to share with you, but we can't do it all in one day. No. So if you want to contact us here at our Studio Network, please go and drop us a line, drop us some information, DM us, whatever you need to. We're here for you. We love you, and what else? What else are we?
Grateful for you.
Oh, yeah, grateful. I'm very content for you. Mary's happy for you.
I am. I'm happy for you.
Until next Wednesday, we'll see you guys. Adios.